bet those people don't know it just went over 100. Because it doesn't show it over here. See what the detail map. We had some uptrending. It's up over 100 here. Oh, there it is again. I'm surprised they don't have some type of a warning when it goes so high. Maybe that, because that one's got a dark circle, it means it's 3 times higher than the other one. Right? It's not equalized. Let's just go back up and see if it's changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've had these devices for 70 years, so it's not that astonishing, actually, that you finally got a missile. But so you got to peel back to the scenario that one of these smaller, crazy young, I mean, this kid has been raised to do this. And that's a scary thing when a young man has so much power and they revere their statues, and it's the closest thing we've seen from when China, you know, the big revolution, and millions of people starved and died in all these totalitarian takeovers. This is nothing but a huge bully boy in a very teeny spot with some pretty high-tech gadgetry. But we could take those folks out. We all know it. But it's weird. We're going forward and backward at the same time. So what do you want me to deal with? The triple meltdown or this, 20-year-old with a nuke 50 miles away, or China? We need to get sane.
Yeah. Well, the age doesn't even matter. Just because that guy's in his 20s
Right.
doesn't mean that he's a terrible leader. I'm more fearful of our own leaders in the country where I live.
Right.
PU 239 posted an article about depleted uranium. Dr.
Right.
Kang found that male Gulf War veterans reported having infants with likely birth defects at twice the rate of non-veterans. Furthermore, female Gulf War veterans were almost 3 times more likely to report children with birth defects than their non-Gulf counterparts. The numbers changed somewhat with medical record verification. However, Dr. Kang and his colleagues concluded that the risk of birth defects in children of deployed male veterans still was about 2.2 times that of non-deployed veterans. The U.S. Army has commissioned ongoing research into potential risks of depleted uranium and other projectile weapon materials like tungsten, which the U.S. Navy has used in place of DU since 1993, or so they say.
Yeah.
Studies by the U.S. Armed Forces Radiobiology Research Institute conclude that moderate exposures to either depleted uranium or uranium present a significant toxicological threat The conclusion of the study shows that brain damage from chronic uranium intoxication is it occurs at possibly lower doses than previously thought. And we're not even talking about MOX here. That's, this is depleted uranium. And in comparison to straight up uranium, MOX is 2 million times more toxic.
Right. 2 million times?
2 million times more.
Right.
It's 1 million times more if it just came out of a normal breeder process, but if it's a MOX fuel
Right.
with 6% plutonium, it's 2 million times more lethal.
Right.
PU-239 also said radiation from Chernobyl reached Wales, and in Britain you sometimes get red dust from the Sahara on your car. The red sand dust that Busby had mentioned is interesting. When I visited France a few times, you could see it all over the cars parked outside. I was told by locals that it comes from Africa. Well, thanks to Busby, we now know what's in that dust. I'm also thinking of the dust from polluted China hitting our west coast in addition to Fukushima fallout. By illegally using tons of depleted uranium against Iraq, Britain and America have gravely endangered not only the Iraqis but the whole world, for these weapons have released deadly, carcinogenic and mutagenic radioactive particles in such abundance that, whipped up by sandstorms and carried on trade winds, there is no corner of the globe they cannot penetrate, including Britain, for the wind has no boundaries and time is on their side. The radioactivity persists for over 4 billion years and can cause cancer, leukemia, brain damage, kidney failure, and extreme birth defects, killing millions of every age for centuries to come. A crime against humanity which may, in the eyes of historians, rank with the worst atrocities of all time. There's some very intelligent and insightful people on the news. Anthony says, the NRC itself was flying blind. This is a quote. The agency had believed it was virtually impossible to have multiple meltdowns at the same site. As a result, their emergency models all involved the healthy plant using its working systems to control critical systems in the stricken plant until the problems were solved. JASCO had publicly urged calm and for Americans in Japan to follow the guidelines of the Japanese government. NRC press releases in the United States all stated prominently that there was no danger from radioactive fallout, but the transcripts tell another story. On March 14th, JASCO's conference feels every step should be taken to cool the reactor, including using the SDF, the cable said. The United States has made various preparations to deal with a nuclear accident. The president is also very concerned. And there's a link posted //bit.ly/WF7RXG. I mean, this is beginning to feel like an emergency drill where everything goes wrong and you can't imagine how all of them can go wrong. End quote. But the NRC released several daily press releases all reassuring the public there was no danger. And on the high seas and at the American naval installations, the sailors of Operation Tomodachi were on their own. DKA says, at least Americans are coming out and speaking. All of the symptoms they have are strongly correlated with internal exposure. Their symptoms are listed in health effects of radiation contaminations. They could even trace their thyroid problems using new techniques to identify radiation-induced thyroid DNA damage. But CNN, ABC, NBC, Fox, etc., are they speaking about this? Mac posts a link to medicalexpress.com, atomic bomb survivors ionizing exposure. Maybe this study will help their lawsuit. In one of the largest and longest follow-up studies ever conducted to assess the effects of ionizing radiation upon the development of soft tissue sarcomas in humans, the investigators found that much lower levels than previously ever identified lead to the development of soft tissue sarcomas and poor survival rates.